There has been increasing talk of the BRICS nations – Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa, developing a new currency that will rival the US dollar as the global reserve standard. Last August, the leaders of BRICS met in South Africa for further discussions on the matter. Growing pressure for a new global currency comes after continued weaponization of the US dollar in the form of sanctions and trade wars. Many countries are seeking greater independence from the US financial system. Following the end of the Second World War, the Allies gathered at the Bretton Woods and anointed the US dollar and the world's principal reserve currency. It was pegged against gold at the exchangeable rate of $35 an ounce. However, in 1971, the dollar was decoupled due to insufficient US gold reserves, rendering the dollar fiat money. A few years later, US Secretary of State Henry Kissinger visited King Faisal of Saudi Arabia to broker the petrodollar system. The United States agreed to provide military support and, in return, the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, the OPEC, would denominate oil globally in US dollars. This created synthetic demand. Countries buying oil would need US dollar, which in turn enabled US dollar primacy. In 2021, Saudi Arabia and Russia signed a military cooperation agreement. The United States was no longer the sole protector of the Saudi Kingdom. Moreover, at this year's World Economic Forum in Davos, Saudi Arabia's Finance Minister Mohammed Al-Jaidan announced that the country was open to trading in other countries in addition to the US dollar, something they have done before in nearly 50 years. The signals of de-dollarization were emerging. During a 2022 BRICS summit, Russian President Vladimir Putin announced that the bloc was working to create an international reserve currency. This was on the agenda for a 2023 BRICS summit as well. It was speculated that the BRICS currency would be backed by gold. This would be an historic return of the gold standards and bring stability to the new currency. However, at the moment, this is just a speculation. According to the IMF World Gold Council, the first 2 months of this year saw the largest purchase of gold from Singapore, 51.4 tons, Turkey, 45.5, China, 39.8, Russia, 31.1, and India, 2.8. It seems clear that BRICS countries are accumulating gold in preparation for their new currency, noting that Turkey, among many other countries, has applied for BRICS membership. Meanwhile, we see a decline in shares of the US dollar held by central banks. According to the IMF Currency Composition of Official Foreign Exchange Reserves, COFR, countries are positioning themselves for a new international system. BRICS nations now account for more than 40% of the world's population and have an aggregated global GDP of 31.5%. This surpasses the G7's United States, Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan and United Kingdom GDP of 30.7%. It's conceivable to see BRICS nations entirely self-sufficient, trading among themselves without a reliance on the United States. This may well be China's plan, given the extent of its Belt and Road Initiative, the BRI, the largest infrastructure development project in history aiming to connect Asia and Africa, Europe and South America. The United States is noticeably excluded. Despite China-India relations alternating between detente and antagonism, both countries seem willing to cooperate to some extent, with India participating and investing in the BRI on a proxy basis through the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, New Development Bank, and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Additionally, 7 of the 13 OPEC countries have also joined or applied to join the BRICS, and all OPEC countries are connected to the BRI. The future geopolitical and economic environment is being shaped, and the United States appears not to be a part of it. As the reliance on the US dollar diminishes, central banks will begin dumping their dollar reserves. This will result in hyperinflation, a spike in interest rates to compensate for the loss of purchasing power, and falling asset prices, further accelerating US decline. The trend of de-dollarization is occurring, but it's not something unique. The rise and the fall of empires and reserve currencies are apparent throughout history, from the Dutch Empire and the guilder to the British Empire and the pound sterling, and now the US Empire and the dollar. There will inevitably be a shift in the world order, and it may well be the BRICS time. From the beginning of 2024, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Argentina, the UAE, and Ethiopia will join the current 5 members: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. This was announced during 2023 summit in Johannesburg. China's President Xi Jinping described the expansion as historic. Projections by Goldman Sachs show that world's economy balance shifting towards the BRICS in emerging China is expected to overtake the US as the world's largest economy by 2050, with India climbing to number 3.